Welcome back to Braintree Today. I'm Sarah Hamilton, and you're watching BCAM TV. Now we'll be getting into our latest stories from the week. On Wednesday, while speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, President Trump said that he will not use military force to gain control of Greenland, an option that he had previously reserved. He did reiterate his desire to take over the island, which is a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark. In an address that lasted for more than an hour, he said the U.S. needs to take control of Greenland purely for security and not for access to minerals. He reminded the audience that during the Second World War, Denmark signed an agreement that gave the protection responsibility of Greenland to the United States as Denmark had been occupied by Germany. At the conclusion of the war, the United States gave control of Greenland back to the Dutch. The president reiterated his vow, telling reporters during a bilateral meeting, "The military is not on the table. I don't think it'll be necessary," adding that he believes people are going to use better judgment. In international news, as many as 20,000 people are feared to have been killed during protests of the Islamic regime in Iran. According to the United States-based human rights activist news agency, at least 2,500 protesters have been killed since demonstrations began last month. President Donald Trump said that Iran stopped killing protesters while addressing reporters at the Oval Office, saying, "We've been told that the killing in Iran is stopping and there's no plan for executions." Trump's comments seem to imply that there will be less pressure for action from the U.S. military, but he did order a military buildup in the region. Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei warned in a broadcast on national Iranian television that the government wouldn't tolerate mercenaries for foreigners. The Supreme Leader's comments followed an internet blackout in Iran amid the ongoing protests. Several videos of the protests, however, have been shared on social media by opposition groups and human rights monitors, with protesters calling for Khamenei to be overthrown. In other international news, the White House released the names of some of the leaders who will play a role in overseeing the next steps in Gaza. The Palestinian committee that is set to govern the territory under U.S. supervision met for the first time in Cairo last week. The committee's leader, Ali Shath, an engineer and former Palestinian Authority official from Gaza, pledged to get to work quickly to improve conditions. He expects reconstruction and recovery to take about 3 years and plans to focus first on immediate needs, including shelter. Shath said the Palestinian people were looking forward to this committee, its establishment, and its work to rescue them. U.S. President Donald Trump supports the group's efforts to govern Gaza after the 2-year war between Israel and Hamas. Now there will be a huge number of challenges going forward, including the deployment of an international security force to supervise the ceasefire deal and the difficult process of disarming Hamas. Under Trump's plan, Shath's technocratic committee will run day-to-day affairs in Gaza under the oversight of a Trump-led Board of Peace, whose members have not yet been named. Curtis International, a Canada-based appliance distributor, has expanded its recall of Frigidaire-branded mini-fridges that were sold in the United States. The recall now includes approximately 964,000 units in the United States. The recall follows multiple reports of the mini-fridges catching fire due to electrical components that can short-circuit and ignite the plastic housing. The recall is for mini-fridges with the model number EFMIS121, which were sold exclusively at Target stores and online between January 2020 and October 2023. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission has received at least 6 reports of these units catching fire, resulting in property damage. This expansion follows a previous recall in 2024 of about 634,000 mini-fridges. Those units, sold by retailers such as Walmart and Amazon, were linked to 26 incidents of overheating, melting, or catching fire, with 2 cases of smoke inhalation injuries reported. The CPSC urges consumers to stop using the recalled mini-fridges immediately. Owners should unplug the units, cut the power cord, and write recall on the front door with a permanent marker. Consumers can visit Curtis International's website to request a refund and should dispose of the units according to local and state regulations. In an update to a story we brought you last week, flu cases in the United States are showing signs of decline. That's according to the latest data from the CDC. The week ending in January 10th saw over an 18% drop in confirmed flu cases nationwide. Despite the decrease in cases, the flu continues to have a significant impact. 15 more children died from the flu, bringing the total number of pediatric deaths to 32 this season. The CDC reported that doctor visits for respiratory illnesses decreased by more than 5% and hospitalization rates dropped by nearly 55%. But flu-related deaths rose by 2% during the same period. The The CDC also advises that multiple respiratory viruses, including the flu, COVID, and RSV, are co-circulating and varies by location. Thanks for watching Braintree Today. We'll be right back with more after the break.
Hi, I'm Tom Lyons, a retired captain from the Quincy Fire Department and the author of the book Fighting Fire, A Proactive Approach. Let's talk portable electric space heater safety. These heaters must not be left unattended. Place them on a stable base 3 feet from combustibles. Their use is not recommended within a bedroom, but if you must do so, place a smoke detector on the ceiling within the bedroom. Plug a portable space heater directly into the outlet, avoiding extension cords. Thus, do not use lamp cords or power strips for this purpose. Are portable, unvented propane and oil-filled heating appliances safe to use within a residence? No. Massachusetts prohibits their use. These heaters produce asphyxiant gases. These gases can render an occupant incapacitated or dead. Please consider your safety during these upcoming colder months. Thank you for doing so.
Welcome back to Braintree Today. I'm Sarah Hamilton. Now we'll be getting into more stories. On January 15th, the town of Braintree came together this year for the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Citizens of the Year ceremony to honor several outstanding members of our community. Christopher Griffin, Assistant Recreation and Community Event Coordinator, welcomed everyone and opened the ceremony. The Braintree Veterans Council presented the colors, and the BHS Concert Choir sang the national anthem. Mayor Aaron Joyce made a brief speech before presenting the awards to the recipients. Here's more from Mayor Joyce.
Is there anything more beautiful than your life being remembered with a legacy of peacemaking and bringing light to your community? I'm sure that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. cannot imagine or could have imagined the extent to which his life, all but not that long of a life, has left such a profound mark on our country. Today, I am honored to be here in support of our recipients of our Martin Luther King Jr. Awards for 2026. This year, because it feels a little extra special to be coming upon the 250th birthday of our country, we wanted to expand the recognition to acknowledge and honor so much of the depth of community give back that the folks sitting to my left have. Whether you've been in our community for many years or maybe a few years, you've made Braintree your home, and you haven't just moved in. You've brought your families, you've brought your energy, you've opened small businesses, you've opened community art centers, you've organized boot drives, you've given back to local schools. You work in the town and take care of all the small things around the community with always a smile and maybe some choice words, but you always, always save those for when the mayor is out of earshot. So, and Mr. Leonard, for always, always reminding us that Braintree is the birthplace of presidents and bears a very special place in America's history.
The Citizen of the Year Award was presented to Kara Kelly, owner of Waves Seafood, for her kindness and support during challenging times. Also recognized was Barbara Sullivan, Braintree's first First Lady, for her many years of dedicated service to our town. The Family of the Year Award was presented to Bruce and Ann Monaghan for their continued commitment to providing snow boots and clothing to students at Ross Elementary School. The Patriot Award was awarded to Patrick Leonard, Braintree's unofficial town historian. Each honoree exemplifies the spirit of service and dedication that strengthens our community. On Tuesday, January 20th, the Town Council met for their bi-monthly meeting. During the meeting, the Council and Ways and Means members proposed the authorization for tax payment agreement pursuant to MGL Part 1, Title 9, Chapter 60. Christina O'Connell, Town of Braintree Treasurer, gave a brief description of the agreement. Here is more from Ms. O'Connell.
For those unfamiliar, Obviously, residents are all well aware that real estate taxes are due in the town of Braintree every quarter, and all across the municipality, people either pay quarterly or semi-annually. But what we've got here is when individuals or residents of the town of Braintree, whether they be owners of commercial or residential property, when they find themselves unable to pay their real estate taxes, they will fall into delinquency for these taxes. Normally what happens is we just start to go through what we call the demand process, which is basically, we're going to send you another bill. If you haven't paid your bill, we'll send you a demand notice, and then after such time, the town has the ability to put you into what's called tax title, which is effectively putting a lien on your property, encumbering it such that you can't sell it, or you will have difficulty refinancing it if the refinance is for purposes of a resale. So if you owe a tax debt and you haven't paid your bill, you're going to have to pay 14% interest rate on the amount that's due once you go into this lien process. That is a lot of tax interest to be paying. What we want to do is give people the opportunity to waive that interest, to come into the office, to enter into an agreement with us, and we would say, hey, you've got a tax debt with the town of Braintree. We have a lien on your property. Let's try to work something out so that I can take away some of that interest that you owe in exchange for you paying me on some of the tax debt that you owe. It's a situation that tries to find a balance between what the resident can pay and gives a collection option for the town to allow us to try to bring more revenue in that otherwise might be uncollectible. And why do I say that? Because we have 146 properties with tax liens on them. These tax liens date all the way back to 1972. Tax liens last forever. Forever, forever, forever. In the private industry, you might say some of these are bad debt. They're uncollectible. But here in municipal government, we keep them on the rolls forever. So they feel like bad debt to me. In some cases, they've been on the roll since 1972. We're not going to see these people walking through the door. I want to be honest about that. So we need to incentivize these people to walk through the door. The incentive that Mass General Law has provided the municipalities is that, hey, you can enter into a payment agreement with these folks, reducing the interest that they owe in exchange for them giving you some of the money that they owe you. Again, that 14% interest that accrues after you put a property into tax title, we can waive some of that pursuant to Mass General Law if the council allows it. The way we would do this is we'd enter into a mutually agreeable payment agreement between the resident and the town of Braintree.
Town Council President Peter Morin had follow-up comments on this matter as well. Here's more from Council President Peter Morin.
Having worked in a community that adopted this statute's predecessor, I've seen it work. I've seen a treasurer collector be able to work with residents to retain the property that they've held, when they've had circumstances that have placed them behind. And the success rate is very high in getting people back on track. It is important for us to collect every dollar that is owed. It is less important to try to collect interest on people who fall behind if they are willing to work with us to get back on track. So I commend the mayor's office and the council, the Ways and Means, for their careful deliberation on this matter.
To watch the full Town Council meeting, tune into BCAM TV Government Channel, Channel 8 on Comcast, and Channel 26 on Verizon. And check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/BCAMTV. A longtime Braintree High School coach is being recognized as one of the best in the state. Bill O'Connell, the head coach of Braintree Baseball, is being inducted into the Massachusetts Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame later this month. It's an honor that comes nearly 20 years after he made the decision to fully commit to the baseball program. O'Connell took over as varsity head coach in 2006. At the time, the team was coming off back-to-back losing seasons. In his first year, the Womps turned things around, finishing 11-9. Since then, the program has become one of the most consistent in the state. Under O'Connell, Braintree has reached the playoffs every season, won 7 league titles, and captured 2 state championships. Despite the success, O'Connell says the Hall of Fame recognition feels a little surreal. He says the honor reflects not just his work, but the players, assistant coaches, and support he's had over the years. Now entering his 20th season at the helm, O'Connell says his focus has shifted beyond wins and losses, putting more emphasis on relationships, growth, and helping his players off the field. And with another season ahead, he says he's as excited as ever to be back in the dugout. Good news for local veterans in Braintree. The Braintree Veterans Services Center has announced that the Veterans Pantry is back up and running. The pantry is now accepting donations of new clothing, toiletries, and non-perishable food items, all of which go directly towards supporting local veterans in need. The pantry serves veterans in Braintree, Holbrook, and Avon. Donations can be dropped off at the Veterans Service Center located at 74 Pond Street in Braintree. Town officials say the reopening of the pantry ensures veterans continue to have access to essential resources and support within the community. Here's a look at what's happened and what is going to happen around Braintree this week. The local emergency planning committee met on January 20th at 11 a.m., followed by the Tri-Town Water Commissioners meeting. That evening, the Committee on Ordinance and Rules met and the Town Council met at 7:30 p.m. The Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a site visit on January 23rd at 1 p.m. At the Thayer Public Library, there's plenty happening throughout the rest of the month. The library is hosting a blind date with the book event that started on January 20th and will run through February 15th. The Tween Book Club will meet on January 22nd at 6 p.m., featuring Restart by Gordon Corman. For community programs, Braintree Elder Affairs is hosting a spa day on January 23rd. The Braintree Recreation Department is offering a Central Rock Gym climbing clinic that started on January 7th, running through February 11th, and again from February 18th through March 25th. They're also running a Kids Test Kitchen program, which started on January 13th and will run through February 24th, meeting Tuesdays at 5 p.m., along with Kids Art Night Out on February 6th. And finally, the Knights of Columbus will hold their annual free throw contest on February 1st from 9 a.m. to noon at the Doherty Gym. And that's your weekly snapshot. Thank you for watching Braintree Today on BCAM TV. We'll be right back with more stories in the area. Welcome back to Braintree Today. Now let's get right into more stories. A Marshfield police officer is facing multiple charges after allegedly driving under the influence and causing a multi-car crash last Sunday. Officials say Richard Perry was off duty and driving a Jeep at a high rate of speed along Route 139 and allegedly crossed a double line to pass the driver of a Hyundai Elantra. He then struck the driver of a Honda Civic head-on. Perry also hit the driver of the Hyundai. The Marshfield Fire Department had to extract the driver of the Honda Civic with the jaws of life and transport him to the hospital to be treated for serious injuries. The driver of the Hyundai did not need medical attention. Officer Perry is now on leave and facing several charges, including leaving the scene of the accident and operating under the influence. In a statement, Marshfield Police Chief Philip Tavares said, "The department is committed to full transparency and accountability. A complete investigation is being conducted into this incident. The fact that the operator was a police officer will not alter the scope, direction, or integrity of this investigation in any way. Authorities say that the incident is still under investigation and that additional charges may follow." The ongoing legal dispute over Quincy's controversial saint statues is headed to the state's highest court. The mayor of Quincy commissioned the 10-foot-tall bronze statues of St. Michael the Archangel and St. Florian planned for the new public safety building in Quincy. But 13 Quincy residents, represented by the ACLU and other civil liberty organizations, sued, claiming that the saint statues violate the separation of church and state. In October, Norfolk Judge William Sullivan issued a preliminary injunction temporarily prohibiting the statue's installation until the case reaches a final ruling. The city appealed. Quincy's patrol officers and firefighters unions and the DC-based Jewish Coalition for Religious Liberty have asked the High Court to overturn the preliminary injunction. The statues, which cost between $850,000 and $1 million, represent the patron saints of police and firefighters. The crux of the suit is that the mayor commissioned them without informing the public or city council, which approved funding for new building. Instead, the public and most councilors first heard of the statues from the Patriot Ledger in February 2025. The city contests the trial judge's finding that the religious significance of the statues depicting two Catholic patron saints is essentially undisputed. The Supreme Judicial Court will take up the case if any two justices vote for it, or if a majority of the justices of the appeals court certify it. A 39-year-old Massachusetts man is facing charges after allegedly pouring gasoline on a police chief's cruiser outside a police station in Abington. Last Friday morning, an Abington police lieutenant saw a man pouring a liquid on the cruiser, which was parked in a spot marked Chief at the station, located at 215 Central Street. In a security video from the station, a man can be seen approaching a Ford Interceptor and pouring something on it. A few moments later, a police officer is seen rushing out of the station and appears to place the man in handcuffs. 2 other people come out from the station, including one who appears to be inspecting the cruiser for any damage. Police Chief John Bonney said he was going to light the cruiser on fire, and the cruiser was very close to the building. The building would have gone up, and this could have been catastrophic. But our lieutenant acted really quickly and really saved the day here. The man, later identified as Franklin Cedar Home of Weymouth, was in possession of 2 gallons of gasoline and a lighter. He was taken to a hospital for a mental health evaluation. Cedar Home will be charged with attempted arson, malicious damage to a motor vehicle, and trespassing. Bonney said he is not completely unknown to the department, but declined to specify a possible motive. Governor Healey announced some good news on energy for Massachusetts. The governor hosted Quebec officials at the Massachusetts State House last Friday to announce that the hydropower from the Canadian province is now being transmitted to Massachusetts along lines running through the state of Maine. The transmission line will carry up to 1,090 megawatts of electricity into the state, Healey said. This project alone is going to lower electricity bills by $50 million every single year. This power is clean, consistent, and affordable, and we've locked this power in at the affordable price for the next 20 years. Though the news is welcome, experts say that the project will reduce consumers' monthly electric bills by only about $1.50 per month. The overall savings for consumers is projected to be $20 billion over the next 20 years. Hydropower is considered a clean energy that is projected by the state to reduce carbon emissions, the equivalent of removing 700,000 cars from the road. In some not-so-good news for the state, according to a new survey, Massachusetts is once again one of the top moved from states in the country. According to a United Vans Line moving truck company survey, the state was ranked number 7 on the list of the top outbound states for 2025. United Van Lines said 55% of its business in Massachusetts was for outbound moves, compared to 45% for inbound moves to the state. The survey highlighted that 63% of moves in the New Bedford, Fall River area were outbound. Conversely, one of the locations seeing the greatest influx of new residents was Barnstable on Cape Cod, where 67% of all moves were inbound. So why are people leaving Massachusetts? The top reason people moved away from Massachusetts was to be closer to family, according to 23% of survey respondents. Another 22% said they left for a new job, and 15% moved away for retirement. Massachusetts, and especially the Boston area, has a reputation for being one of the most expensive places in the country for housing and raising a family. The study found that the top destinations for people heading out of Massachusetts were California, Florida, North Carolina, and South Carolina. The people who moved into Massachusetts in 2025 said a job was the main reason, followed by family priorities. Thank you for tuning in to Braintree Today. We'll be right back with more on entertainment and sports. Welcome back to Braintree Today. Here's Chris Curran with the latest in sports.
The boys basketball team came out of December on a 2-game win streak, winning the Cohasset Holiday Tournament, but start January with a loss. Through January, they have 2 wins to 3 losses, with their wins being over Framingham and Natick, and losses coming in 2 close games against Plymouth and Norwell, and a blowout to Newton North. Let's look at highlights from the Norwell game. Norwell is ranked 11th in Division III play by MIAA, while Braintree is ranked at 34th in Division I play. So on paper, this should have been an easier game than it was for Braintree. After one quarter, the game was tied 21-21, both teams matching each other's offensive ability. The offenses stayed hot through the second quarter, Braintree barely getting a lead to go into half at 39-33. Norwell closed the gap in the third, only being down by 1, 51-50, basically a reverse of the second quarter. The fourth quarter had 3 lead changes and was tied at 60 with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Norwell was able to take the lead a minute later and held on for the last minute and 30 seconds to go home with the win, 64-60. They looked to right the ship going into late January with games against an 8-3 Brookline, a 4-7 Wellesley, and a 7-3 Walpole. All these games are on the road. While the girls basketball team has started January 4-1 with wins over Framingham, Natick, Newton North, and North Quincy, with their only loss coming to Walpole. They stand at 7-3 on the season, which is already more losses than they had last season, The MIAA has them ranked just outside of the top 10 at 11. For the rest of January, they face Bridgewater Raynham, Brookline, Wellesley, and Walpole. All these games will be at home. Boys hockey has had a tough go of it this season with a record of 2-7-2. January has been a tough month so far for them too, with 4 losses to Milton, Framingham, Natick, and Pope Francis, with their most recent win coming against Newton North 3-1. They hope to string some wins together with the Ed Burns tournament game on the 25th and every Sunday after for the rest of the season. Their first opponent is still to be announced, and with 2 games where both teams are around 500 in Wellesley and Walpole. As for the girls hockey team, they are looking much better than last season. They are 5-2-3 on the season. They have split their first 5 games in January so far, with commanding wins over Newton North and Norwood, but tough losses to Milton and Natick, and a high-scoring tie versus Framingham. They look to keep their win streak alive with upcoming games versus Archbishop Williams, Brookline, King Philip, Wellesley, and Walpole. The MIAA has Braintree ranked just inside the playoffs at 28th. They need to come away from this stretch with a winning record to assert themselves a comfortable playoff spot. That is what Braintree winter sports look like at the midway point in the season, with some teams looking to make the playoffs and some even gearing up to make a run at the championship. Now let's send it back to Sarah in the studio.
Thanks, Chris. Now here are some new movies and shows that have been creating some social buzz. First, The Rip follows a Miami-Dade police team who discovers a massive $20 million stash of cartel cash inside a derelict house. What begins as a shocking find quickly spirals into paranoia and fractured loyalties. As outside threats close in, the group is forced to decide whether to keep the money or report it, testing just how far they're willing to go and who among them that can be truly trusted. The film stars Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. You can watch The Rip now on Netflix. Up next, Primate follows college student Lucy, who returns home to Hawaii for summer break. There, her family's beloved pet chimpanzee, Ben, is bitten by a rabid mongoose and becomes infected with rabies. As Ben transforms into a vicious and highly intelligent killer, Lucy and her friends are forced to barricade themselves inside the house and fight for survival against the rampaging ape. The film stars Johnny Sequoia and Jessica Alexander. You can watch Primate now in theaters. Finally, 28 years later, The Bone Temple follows young survivor Spike, who is living among a violent cult led by the deranged Jimmy Crystal. He struggles to survive in a brutal post-apocalyptic Britain where other humans prove more dangerous than the infected. At the same time, Dr. Ian Kelson uncovers disturbing new information about the Rage virus and its alpha infected. His discoveries lead to a confrontation at the Bone Temple, where humanity's capacity for cruelty is laid bare. The film stars Ralph Fiennes and Alfie Williams. You can watch 28 years later, The Bone Temple, now in theaters. That'll do it for news today. Don't forget, Verizon customers can watch BCAM TV in high definition on channel 2128 and Comcast on channel 1073. I'm Sarah Hamilton, and thank you for watching Braintree Today on BCAM TV. We'll see you next time.